Okay, I'd like to call to order the November 12th Board of Trustees meeting. First go around the room. My name is Mark Kissinger. I'm the president of the board.
Sherry Whiting, I'm the board treasurer.
Heather Lewis, external auditor.
Sarah Patterson,
Just-
secretary and trustee.
Pressure button.
Lawrence Bennett, trustee.
Gail Sacco, trustee. Caroline Brancatella, vice president.
Lisa Scoons, a UHLS trust board liaison and trustee.
Jeff Kirkpatrick, library director.
Okay, and we're Michelle Walsh is sick, so she's not joining us tonight, the other trustee. And we wish her recovery as soon as possible. Is there any public comment? Okay, moving right along, we'll go into the audit presentation then.
Thank you. Do we want to pass these out?
I can, would you like to see copies? I mean, there was a copy in the board packet, but there's not enough for everybody, but you know.
Okay, I'll go ahead and just get started here. So if we turn to page. We go, yeah, just wait,
You gotta get really sure.
Your light.
we can share the screen.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so if we go right to page one is the independent auditor's report. This lets you know what our opinion is, that we've audited the library's financial statements in each major fund as of June 30th, 2024. Lets you know that the opinion that we've expressed is that the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. That's the letter. I can go to the letter
Okay,
first.
give me a second.
Sure,
We can do this.
we can do it.
That,
Scroll up some more. No, the other way, sorry. Page one of the financial statements.
Yes.
Yep, keep going.
Okay, so that's that first section. The opinion is that we've audited the financial statements and that they're fairly stated in all material respects and of course with generally accepted accounting principles. The next section is our basis for opinion. So we have auditing standards that we have to follow as well as generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. And then it lets you know what management's responsibility is. So management is responsible for preparing those financial statements and making sure they are materially correct and in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Make sure they have good controls in place throughout the year and that they monitor those controls and report to us if they think there's any concern that the library would not be in existence 1 year from now. And then on page 2 at the top, it talks about what auditor's responsibility is. So our responsibility is to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are materially correct. We issue it's a high level of assurance. It's not absolute assurance. We do have certain standards that we have to follow that I talked about. We have to be professionally skeptical. We have to ask a lot of questions. We say, show me the information. We assess the risk that the financials could be materially misstated and then design our audit appropriately. We get an understanding of your internal controls and then design our audit to address those controls. We don't give an opinion on your controls. We do get that understanding. We evaluate the appropriateness of your accounting policies and any of your significant estimates. And then we also would conclude if there are any concerns about the library's ability to continue for a year, which there are no concerns. There'd be a lot of different language in here if there were. And then we're required to communicate back to you guys. And then required supplemental information. So that paragraph just talks about certain schedules and pages that are in here that are required by the standards. We don't give any opinion on them, but they are in there as they are required. The last page, page 3, lets you know that there's another report in accordance with government auditing standards, and we'll go through what that report is as well. Page 4 starts management's discussion and analysis. Nothing in particular I was going to go through here. A lot of good information. It can kind of give you explanations of what happened this year and some things to consider for the future. But if we turn to page 10. So page 10 and page 11 are your statement of net position and statement of activities. So these are considered your full accrual financial statements as all the governmental funds, more of a long-term focus. So it includes your capital assets and all of your long-term debts and long-term liabilities. So this is supposed to make you more comparable to that for-profit or not-for-profit entity. Page 11 is just the same thing on the revenue and expense side. And then pages 12, 13 show each of your funds, which you have two funds, your general fund and your capital projects fund. So it shows each one of those funds on an individual column, and it is more of a short-term focus. So it doesn't have your long-term assets and it doesn't have your long-term liabilities included in these numbers. If we go to the next page, your statement of revenues and expenditures. So I like to look at that third line up from the bottom, which is the excess of revenue and other sources or expenditures. So this will let you know how each of the funds did this year. So your general fund shows that your expenses exceeded your revenue by 167,000. And that is really that you transferred some money from your general fund to your capital projects fund for the start of that capital project. So that was an intended use of those funds. Your capital projects fund, we can see also had a loss where your expenditures exceeded your revenue by 294,000. Ended the year with a deficit. That's very common for a capital fund until you kind of get that project started. I know you have your vote coming up, but you get that project started and get that long-term bond funding. That's when that fund will not have a deficit anymore and will start showing a profit, but that will be in the future. That's not going to happen right away. So that's very common the way that's reported. No concerns there. I'm going to go to the footnotes. So if we could turn to page 24 of the footnotes. Page 24 is one of your footnotes, footnote number 3 related to cash and investments. This, I just wanted to point out what you're invested in here for your general fund. So some money markets, CDs, and then treasury bills. Those are all allowable investments for the library. That's one of the things that we look at to make sure you're only investing in things that are allowable because you're limited on what you are and are not allowed to invest in. On the next page, footnote number 4, so page 25, shows your capital asset. Just wanted to point out here that first line, that construction in progress. So we can see that you started the year with 242,000, added 854,000 to that. So your construction in progress is 1 million, just over $1 million at the end of the year. So that is where a lot of the activity in your capital projects fund that gets reported in this construction and process line. And if we go to the next page, page 26. So page 26, so this is the start, footnote number 6 is the start of your pension plan footnote. So this is your participation in the employee's retirement system. So this is the library's share of that net pension liability. So it's your share of the employee's retirement system's underfunding, basically. So you would still budget for that on an annual basis, but this is one of those long-term liabilities that gets reported on your full accrual financial statements. So you have no control over the number. The state hires an actuary. It's a pretty significant estimate. You'll see that we disclose it as a significant estimate, but this is your participation in the employee's retirement system. So then if we go to page 30, the next footnote, so page 30, footnote number 7 down at the bottom there is your other post-employment benefit liability. So that's another one of your larger liabilities. And this is the retirees' health insurance. So the library's share of retirees' health insurance. This is that number that you have a little bit more control over because you negotiate what those retiree health insurance payments are. You hire an actuary that performs the calculation, but again, it's a big estimate. So it's a little bit different than the pension ERS because it's your number and based on your specific employee subset. So there's just two different numbers here, but two bigger liabilities. And because of the significant estimate, we like to point that out. So then if we go to the back, second to last pages, so pages 41 and 42. So this is the report in accordance with the government auditing standards. So this is the other report that we're required to include in here. So this lets you know that we've considered your internal control over financial reporting as part of our audit process, gives you some definitions of deficiencies and material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, things like that. And it concludes that we did not have any deficiencies that we consider to be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. So that's clean language there. And then on the top of the next page, page 42, we also have to consider your compliance with any material laws and regulations. And again, we did not have any material non-compliance to report. So that is again, a clean report. So no findings for the audit here. Any questions before I just go through that letter?
I do have a couple questions. But
Sure.
I'll wait for the, so in this audit report, how are you, accounting for the ownership of the building and the land upon which the building stands?
Do you have a?
Well, we account for the building and land as our property. And we depreciate the building. There is a footnote that addresses it. I don't know. Oh, can't believe I just turned to it. Page 25. The building occupied by the library is owned by the Bethlehem Central School District. Because the library was obligated to make payments on the debt issuance for the building, the cost of the facility has also been recorded on the library's books as a capital asset. So it's on our books and we depreciate it. And the land, was part of our assets. That's obviously not depreciated, but we treat it as if we owned it.
Okay, it's fine. I just wanted to know. It's the only question I had.
Okay. And the only other item that we have for you is a letter which just has some required communications in there. Yep, and that was that first letter here. So the first page is a lot of information that we've already talked about. Down in the safeguards area on this first page, it lets you know that because we prepare the financial statements, there are certain things that we have to have in place, certain safeguards to make sure we're complying with the independent standard. So there's two pieces. One, there's an independent partner that reviews these financial statements after I've done my review. And then we also have someone here. So Sherry reviews those financial statements before we issue them. So those are the two safeguards that are in place to make sure we maintain our independence. That's the only service that we provide that would need to be considered for independence for you guys. And then on the top of page 2, it just goes through some of the presumptively mandatory risks. So because you just exist as an organization, there's two risks that we have to address. One is related to management override. The other is related to revenue recognition. So those are always risks at every organization. So it just lets you know that those risks are present and that we address our audit for those. There's also those estimates that we talked about. So the net pension liability for the employee's retirement system, as well as the other post-employment benefit liability. So those are two significant actuarial assumptions, as well as compensated absences. So that is another estimate that's included in your financial statements, and that we believe that that is reasonable. And then we didn't have any difficulties. Management provided us with information that we needed. And then the only thing that we had was an uncorrected misstatement. So it was a misstatement from a prior year that corrected itself this year. So that's attached to this letter. So it was a small enough dollar amount that it was passed down last year. And because it was passed down last year, it also has to be passed on this year. But there were no journal entries that we proposed as part of the audit process that we felt were material and that needed to be brought to your attention. So that again is a clean information there as well. So any questions? Okay. We just want to thank the library staff. Everyone was very helpful throughout the whole process and gave us access to whatever we needed and whatever documentation we requested. So that was very helpful. And it's clear that management reviews the financial statements because there's lots of questions and updates to footnotes and things that are certainly helpful because it allows us to feel very comfortable that we can maintain that independence. So we appreciate their time.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. So we'll now move on to the review of previous meeting minutes on pages 50 and 55 and page 56.
Can I just say thank you to the financial department of the library,
Sure.
Sherry and Tanya, for being so meticulous about their work, that the audit went smoothly with no issues finding things. Very, very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vote to accept the audit.
Okay, I'll take a motion to accept the audit report.
So moved.
Any second? Sarah, Laura, any further discussion? Any discussion on the audit or questions? Okay, hearing none. I'll take a vote. All those in favor, please signify by yes or raising your hand. Seeing no opposition, the motion is carried. Okay, going on to the next item on the agenda was a review of the previous meeting minutes. So if you look at the packet, page 50 through 55 was the meeting of Tuesday, October 15th. Take a motion on that packet. Laura, a second?
Second.
Sarah, any discussion on the meeting minutes as page 55.
I just wanted to add, the version that made it into the packet, there was supposed to be the addendum of the two emails. I have done a correction. It's not in here, but it will be in the final.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye, raise your hand. Seeing no opposition, that motion is carried. The next meeting minutes is page 56, the special board meeting of Tuesday, October 22nd. It was very extensive meeting minutes here. I will take a motion on these meeting minutes as well. Lisa, second. Laura, okay, any discussion? All those in favor
Yeah.
signify by saying yes.
Yeah.
I see no opposition, that motion carries as well. Okay, moving into the next report, the financial report, page 57. Treasurer.
Okay, so we did receive about 4.4 million in tax revenue in October. And that represents about 96% of the budgeted tax revenue. So we've got, we had a big inflow of cash. Expenses are under budget by about 7%, which is exactly where we were last year at this time. Always takes a little time for things to catch up. It's, often a slower, not that it's a slower start, but it just takes a while before we start getting into some of the expenses that we normally incur. I don't know, before I get into anything else, maybe we should just go look at the report and make sure that if anybody has any questions. I don't know if anybody had any specific questions about the revenue or expense. Okay. I do want to talk a little bit about investments. We researched investing funds with the New York Liquid Asset Fund. Their CD rates are very comparable to what we're getting from TD Bank right now. However, their money market fund pays about 1.5% more than what we get with TD Bank. But if we wanted to invest with them, we would have to amend our investment policy since it's very restrictive, requiring collateralization for, any of the funds that we invest above the 250,000 insured limit. And the New York Liquid Asset Fund does not offer collateralization. So we talked about this at the Finance Committee meeting, and we decided that for now, because I think we have enough on our plate to try to go through revising the investment policy would be, just another added task that maybe we don't need to do right now. We decided to invest 2 million in a short-term CD, a 3-month CD, which we're earning 4.4%, which is a really good rate. And we're investing another 1 million in a 6-month CD, which is paying 4.2%. The 6-month CD that came due on November 4th went right back into our checking account. So we've got plenty of funds in our operating account to pay bills. We think this is a good way to take advantage of better interest rates in a short-term period and still give us the flexibility that we need to operate the library. And, at some point in the future, maybe we can talk about revising the investment policy. If we have appetite to do that.
Well, I wonder, because Rachel was mentioning that, I'm wondering if we float that by MMB.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was.
I was thinking that too when she mentioned it. I thought it's another advisor we could talk to get, good information.
And I asked, why are we thinking about doing that? Just because it's a better rate? So,
That would be that would be the reason that it's a better rate, and it seems as though it's secure. Other libraries are taking advantage of it. Upper Hudson's taking advantage of it. Seems like it's a program that's been established for that purpose. I don't know. I mean,
In our conversation with them, they're like, if this is an allowable investment under the comptroller, but different than my traditional understanding of that, so I think it just
Right,
bears some
right.
scrutiny to
Yeah,
make sure we're
Yeah,
solid ground.
right. I also do want to mention that the fund balance as of June 30th is 3,928,140. So that's where we stand with funds available. But we will be, I do expect to have a surplus this year and most likely next year. And we won't need to tap into it until probably 2026. I'm guessing. If the vote passes.
I did have a question, sorry,
Sure.
on the warrants.
Mhm.
There's on page, page it is here, but there's a check warrant on the H fund for the town of Bethlehem.
Yeah.
What is that, $400?
So $400 is it's for a water test. There's a hydrant flow test with the water department. Since then, we talked to the director and they're gonna waive that $400 as long as the test remains simple. Just sort of as a courtesy. If it gets complicated, then they may come back and ask for that.
So it looks like the check date is tomorrow.
Correct. That's the day it would go, but we're not gonna send it because they just told us that we don't.
So that'll be a change. It'll be next month, it'll be credit or something.
I would like it to be approved to pay in case we end up, I don't want to get into the middle of this and have this hold up the water flow test.
Okay, so
So
flow tests for,
sprinkler system.
okay, the fact that we could have one,
Correct. So the engineers we're working on the design. They have to work with the water department. And if you were a homeowner, you'd be paying that. I mean, you'd have to be a pretty good homeowner to put sprinklers in.
Pretty
your
big
house,
building.
but- Pretty big building, but it's,
pretty rich home.
yeah, it's just, that's a normal thing. It's just
Okay,
in negotiation.
So we'll just hold on to the check and if we need to
Yeah.
void it, we will. If we need to spend it, we'll send it in.
okay, that's fine. I just had a question, like, why are we paying town?
Yeah, I mean, we pay them all the time for the water. It's called taxes, water and sewer.
Yeah.
But it's literally, we just pay for the water use. Just because we're a government entity doesn't mean we don't have to pay for our water and sewer use.
Right. We want to get into the town water issue that's happening right now. It's not our purview, luckily, so. Okay, that's the only questions I had on those financial report. Anyone else got any questions on the financial? Okay, hearing none, I need a motion to accept the financial report.
So moved.
All right, any second? Lisa, any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by raising their hand and saying yes. Motion, seeing no opposition, the motion carries. Thank you, Sherry. Personnel report, page 67.
Best personnel report ever. No actions requested, nothing to report. So just,
Okay, moving on. Director's report.
okay, here we go. So just more talk on the building project. I just highlight here once again that the vote is Thursday, December 12th from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. here in the library in the community room. And it will be an election held by the school district, but held remotely here for the library because the vote is on the library. Seems like the best place for that. Lots of meetings. We're talking about AV systems, the IT needs for the building. We're deeply involved in all of that stuff. Ashley McGraw will be here tomorrow night, Wednesday, November 13th. And then again on Tuesday, December 6th from 6 to 7:30, they'll be here in this room doing their presentation to the public. And December 3rd, did I not say the 3rd?
Tuesday.
Sorry, it's right in the writing. So I'm just reading too quickly. I apologize for that. Tuesday, December 3rd. They'll be here and they will do a short presentation followed by a Q&A with members of the public. And we did have National Grid here on the same day that they were doing the new poles all over downtown Bethlehem here. Completely unrelated, they came in and they were just looking at how our services were connected and if that those transformers needed to be moved for the project, how that would work, what they would need to do, what those underground lines would do. So those folks came out and were working with our engineers. Always interesting. And then here we talk about the water department supply test for the pressure. Lots of good stuff in technical services. Make sure those overdrive records are in the Encore catalog. And then we have been having some issues with the electronic museum pass software. We're not happy, but Phil's working with a different company. I'm happy to say that here to get those moved over because the service, the electronic service for the museum passes is important. So we'll get that going as fast as we can. Thanks to the community just at large about the great give back. Just really, we were overwhelmed is the only word I can say, but in a positive way with all of the donations of cleaning supplies and everything that went over to the Bethlehem Food Pantry. So that was incredible. And then Little Sunday Music started back up. The Bethlehem Historical Association, again, good attendance on this one. The Albany Susquehanna Railroad, which later became the D&H. Always those historic local history stuff really tends to go well. And just thanks again to the Bethlehem Historical Association for just bringing in really amazing speakers for us. Lots of Halloween related thing. Lots of programs, really good continued attendance on the children's programs. I know I keep hitting this like a bell, but I'm sorry. The numbers are there. The story time, movement and music, all of these programs and the staff that do them are really getting quite a reputation among the folks who come to those programs and how positive they are. I hear about it pretty frequently from the public about how happy they are with the programs. The wants are always more. They always want more, but the attendance has been very high, and especially for the Saturday story time, that's a relatively new market for us, and it took a while to get the attendance going. You see the attendance on Saturday is not as high as the attendance during the week, but starting to develop its own audience there, which we're happy. I see you going for your button, Gail. You got a question?
Just want to comment on programs that could use a larger room, which is the Bethlehem Historical Association, which had 87. The Creation Station, which is 297 kids. It takes up a lot of space in kids' room. Also, the music program. There is a Tiny Tots session that had 56 kids.
Yeah.
So the numbers that Jeff is talking about are numbers where we have people crowded together.
These
And continual stream of things that they're the reason that we're talking about more space.
These movement and musics in particular, which I've got highlighted on the screen, when there's 82 people in this room and a bunch of them are dancing around, it's tight. It's tight in here. That's the way it is. But you know, we are not going to go back to where we had people sign up. I don't know if anybody was around for the years ago when people would wait out in the cold on the one morning when we would do signups for story time. It was a scene. This works way better. So we're happy with that.
Trick or treat was 272. Kids Build was 44.
Yeah. Thank you. Trick or treat was amazing as usual. Best day to be here. Thanks for those of you who joined me. Get roped into handing things out for the kids. It's just great. It's just a great day to be here. And then lots of good outreaches. The 1,500 people at the trunk or treat, that thing just keeps getting bigger and bigger. They had to actually cut off the parking attendants because there was no more room. There's not enough parking spots at Elmav Park for everybody to park. That's kind of amazing considering how big the parking lot is.
Not small.
No, it was a wild time. It was a great time. I had a good time as always down there. So we're going to take place in the annual holiday parade. That's on December 14th. That'll be right after the vote on the 12th. And then just to bring, Laura had a question about the equity challenge. I fired me and hired Phil because he is way better at collating and submitting the stuff. And so far we've got 5 of the 8 areas submitted and have already been accepted. Upper Hudson cut their checks back to us for that. And so we are moving right along with that stuff, and we'll get down to where it's great to recognize the efforts that the board and the library has taken, towards equity. But then we're going to get down to the place where we need to talk about where are those places that we see some areas for improvement and what do we need to do to move forward. So we are getting to that right now. We've got a lot of things on our mind, but we have plenty of time to get this completed. But just thanks to Phil for getting that over the football, getting that football over. The staff development day is Friday, December 7th. I especially invite all of the board members here to any or all of that day. It's going to be a little bit of a flip. We're going to have a speaker in for a long training this in the morning, and then we'll break, and then we'll have more the state of the library and some of that other stuff we'll do. Normally I do first thing in the morning. We'll be doing after lunch. And then we had a weird month. Many of you know, I've talked to several of you about how we had a car up on the plaza almost all the way to the door. They didn't come through the front doors of the library, but they came within feet of coming through the front door in the library. I am just thankful, as were the police, who came very rapidly, that no one got hurt. It was just a chance that there wasn't anybody up on the plaza, because that car came screaming up the plaza. So just with that, we spray painted the curb out there to turn it red, hopefully to let people know that that's not a place you drive your car. So
Was it just error? Or was there?
there was a lot going on. That's all I'm going to say. There was just a lot. There was a lot there. It wasn't just error. There was a lot going on.
I mean, we might want to consider those
Ballers. Yeah. I was thinking
I
at
mean, not
Target,
that
those big
that's-
round balls at the front of Target.
They're kind of sick.
Yeah. But yeah, something between here and there wouldn't upset me.
Large cement books.
Great.
There you go.
And then we were able to work with our folks across the street at the Bethlehem Police Department. We had a patron who left their phone in the bathroom, and then someone absconded with it, and we were able to work with Bethlehem Police, and that person was able to recover their phone, which was way off the property. Thanks to Locate My iPhone, we were able to help with that, and they were able to narrow in on that person very quickly. So that's unusual. So. And then there's a report from Eva, who attended the NYLA Library Skills Academy. And then next month, you'll have the NYLA annual conference reports. Those folks just got back on Friday. You'll have those reports in next month's packet. So it's exciting to see those reports. I've got a bunch of statistics I'm happy to talk about forever, but you can read the report there. I think we're still seeing good increases right across the board, a little bit of decrease in circulation. But the door count continues to be higher than last year as we settle into our new normal with circulation and in-person use. Questions?
Why do you think the visits to the homepage are down 20%?
So it's funny, you're the second person to ask that question. So I put no stake in the visits to the homepage, which reported straight through. I have to report it on the New York State annual report. It's required for us to report it.
Okay.
We have the statistic hits on the website, but frequently the basis of those statistics seems to change. And I don't really know. I think most of the visits, frankly, are bots. There's a lot of bots, the page gets crawled. There's all kinds of stuff, but it's internally reasonably significant, but I don't know.
Is it counting everything that goes to our website or just the homepage? Because some people may be logging in.
It does. It's just the homepage.
So if people are going straight to the project page or they're going straight to the trustees page, as I suspect some people are.
Right.
That's not heading in that count.
Correct. And that's why this is a required thing for us to report. We use the statistics, the hit statistics on those subsequent pages. We use to sort of manage how we arrange the website. So we use those statistics quite a lot to make sure that we're putting up the most frequently asked things appear on right at the top of our homepage or at the bottom of the homepage. So we use those quite a lot. You're right. There are people who probably can go right to book a room, for instance, it's saved on.
Yeah, well, I think because especially a lot of our literature is putting out those direct links as
Right.
opposed to the homepage.
Yeah, that's a good point. The question I had was on wireless use.
Yeah.
Down 26%.
Yeah, and so that's probably some actual decrease, but also the town hall which hits onto the other side of town hall and hits that outside area over there.
Yeah.
That bridge was down and was
So,
for a month or a couple months was down. So that's not that whole drop, but that's some.
okay,
And I think there's talked about this a couple times internally, where I think the increasing prevalence of unlimited data plans on people's personal devices actually is impacting our
Yeah.
Wi-Fi use in the library. I think there are lots of people, when we started this quest to put Wi-Fi all over town, there were many people that, you were limited to 2 gigabytes or whatever, and now there are still plans like that, but there's a lot of people that are just on whatever plan they're on. So I still think it's a critically important service for us to offer, but it doesn't surprise me that we might see that long-term trend. I wouldn't, month to month, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't worry about a month statistic, but long-term trends, I wouldn't be surprised to see that go down as the sort of the necessity for it drops somewhat.
okay, any other questions for Jeff on the director's report or the stats?
Still can't give a video away. 20% drop, even from last year. That was already a huge drop. So I don't know. Check out some DVDs, people. There's my plea. Take one out. Good. Do you still have something to play it in your house? Yeah, lots of people say they don't have any place to play it anymore. That's a challenge, right?
Anywhere that comes up in conversation is not for the contemporary ones, but for the older ones.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was talking about what's the movie where the two twins try to
Parent Trap.
Parent
Trap. Somebody was comparing the 61 Parent Trap to the Lindsay Lohan Parent Trap, and they said, "Oh, let's go to the library and see if they have the older Parent Traps."
I'm officially Haley Mills all day.
Yeah. Well, but that's where I hear conversation about the library.
Yes.
Well, and we rented Annie because the middle school is doing Annie and it wasn't on any of the streaming services
Oh,
I had. So we came and borrowed that. So I did my part.
Yeah.
Well, I can see that being increasingly an important role that we play, because there's some things that are just super popular like that, but not.
Drop off.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for Jeff? We'll move on to UHLS. Lisa.
All right, I did miss last month, but the only thing I had to report last month was that we did approve the 2025 central library budget, which I think, Laura, you had noted that it includes the New York Times subscription, so.
Maybe I asked about it. Yes.
Yep, so. And then this month, the meeting is tomorrow and we're reviewing the UHLS 2025 budget. They are pretty close to finishing up development of their new website. I don't know when they're going to roll that out. And then interestingly, they're developing some new policies regarding public attendance at meetings and social media. So we'll see what those policies are going to address.
And that New York Times that was added is live. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was really quick.
Yeah.
I got that moving. So
That's it.
Okay, any questions for Lisa? Okay, moving on to new business. Engineering questions.
okay, so just wanted to have a little bit of a conversation here. There's basically 2 outstanding sort of structural engineering questions on the project. And we'll handle them separately. One is about having a generator backup for the line. So we pretty early on determined that that alternative of having a generator was beyond the scope of the project. It was very expensive, somewhere between minimum $500,000 up to $1 million, 1.6 million to have a generator here. The question was about in this project, should the library design and inclusion of the underground wiring, the panels, the switchover equipment that would allow a future library to make a decision about having a generator. Should a library 10 years down the road decide they want to have that? Should we build that infrastructure in while we're doing the project? So trying to get, without going, on a full design, without trying to get that, we should try to estimate what it would cost to have that, to include that infrastructure and, the data that I'm looking at from our engineers would include, it's something between 180, let's call it $90,000 and $180,000, depending on the size of the generator that you might want to include eventually. So that's just it's a question of, do we want to try to squeeze that under, have it as an ad alternate? Maybe that would be the first ad alternate. Is that something we would want to pursue or not? Is it worth that kind of seed money? Understanding the scope, somewhere from just under 100,000 to just under $200,000 to lay the infrastructure to have a generator.
Does laying the infrastructure mean running pipes in the ground and pulling wires through the pipes?
Yeah.
So it can't really be an add-on alternative because those are things that we find at the end of the project that we have unexpected.
Right.
Because it has to be done well. The foundation is being laid. pretty
Yeah, while they're
much.
doing the electrical work, right? And it's the, if we're gonna redo in the proposed project, there's a new electrical panel, and you'd want to have that as part of that, or leave the whole kit and caboodle to a future board and a future library. That's the question. We'd have more meetings about it. I don't know that there's going to be much more financial information about it. That's kind of they're taking it from Trophy Point. You could ask for some more specifics if we wanted to get into designing it, but that's going to take.
How frequently has the library lost? Does that happen once a winter? Does it happen every so often, every couple of years?
Oh, no,
In your memory,
we'll lose power here a couple times a year minimum. And, there's been a couple notable instances of that. There's no question that if money wasn't an issue, you'd want to have a backup generator for the library. So the library could just continue to be here. But there's a cost associated with that. So, is it worth that expense for the level of inconvenience that it is those 2, 3, 4 times a year that we lose power?
And there have been times where we had to close the library.
We lose power, we're closed. And that's we can't have people in the building. And sometimes that surprises people on like a bright sunny day when they're in here. You can't be in here. Fire alarms don't work. There's a lot of stuff that stops working. We can't have an occupied building. It's during the day, it's an orderly leave, but the library's closed.
Sarah, you can take them. Well,
Go ahead and I'll think about it.
It's again, look, it's hard to say no to something like this, knowing that it's only going to increase, right? We're dealing with wildfires in November in New York. It's unpredictable, I think, what we can anticipate, but I am a little bit loath to add any more costs to this project. So you said that the infrastructure just roughly could be, 90 to 180, depending on the size generator, which we wouldn't know because we're not a future board. So
they've got 2 generators. Basically, there's 4 generators that were looked at by Trophy Point because they investigated this. There's basically gas and diesel. Gas is more expensive, diesel is less expensive, but it's diesel, right? And then you have to have a tank and all that stuff, or natural gas, which is already here at the library. And then one would just run everything. Like if you were like putting a Generac on your house and you just said, I want everything working. I want to be totally normal, refrigerators, watching all this stuff. There's that one. And then there's one that is half the size, half the megawatts that would basically say, what's the core of what you need to have in order to keep some of the building open so that you can have occupancy in the building, have the bathrooms open, allow people to charge up their phones, like that kind of stuff. So that's a smaller size generator. And that's where it goes from, for the diesel, the cheapest version is a diesel, a whole kit and caboodle. estimated at under $500,000 to a full generator that runs on natural gas, 1.6. So it's, it depends on what you want to do with a generator, how much you want it to run, what's the purpose of it. That's the question.
And if we don't do it now, but, in 5 years, we say we need to do this, how much more money?
Yep. I mean, that's the question. It's not, a generator is not, just to be clear for people in public, generator is not included in this project. It's just a question of you want to leave the breadcrumbs for that or not.
I think I agree with Laura's point that it's a great thing and we would want to do it, especially considering that costs are only going up, but I think you're all loath to, as you say, add more costs to the project. But for anyone who is, watching this or will watch this later, I'd like to just put this forward as an example of the choices the board has had to make and that this is not easy. I would not guess that a generator would cost $1 million for this building. I just wouldn't guess that. Or that the infrastructure to do it is a whole separate project that costs another couple $100,000. So I don't think that anyone at this table thinks that a generator is not a good thing for the library or thinks that putting together the infrastructure for something like that is not a good thing. But we are mindful of costs. And this is just one example of the things that we have had to consider throughout the project. So I think I'm hearing discussion going one way, but I think that that is useful to highlight for anyone watching this either in real time or later.
I wonder if we can just lay the conduit. If we can make the entry port, if we can make the pathway so that if a future board wants to run the wires and do that expense, they don't have to worry about digging under the foundation of the library to do it in the concrete. I know that lots of times when you wire for technology, you get big pipes so that there's room for extra. I mean, I don't even know if we use wires now, but
They definitely need a wire.
so I mean, I would say as a compromise,
I'll ask.
to maybe make the electrical panel large enough so that the electricity could be added into it without having to redo the electrical panel. And that should be much less than $90,000.
I'll ask.
PVC pipe, right?
I'll ask. It's not the pipe, it's the dig.
So dig.
It's the dig, not
That's where
the
the
pipe.
money
They're
is.
digging any, right?
I'll ask. It's a good idea. Gail. I really will. I'll ask. I'll see what they say. So the other question that was posed to us, and these are just questions that the engineers are asking me, and it's not a Jeff answer. The other question was about the sort of the risk category of the building. And if the building were to ever want to be a shelter for people, there are code requirements for that building specifically about how entrances are designed, about how sprinkler systems are hung, all of these things that make the building more resilient to earthquake right. And of course, we're all thinking like, make it as tough as you can, right? But again, and this one, I don't even have trophy point estimates on this, but we sort of went back and forth and I said, what are we talking about? And it's a design wind speed would increase to 124 miles an hour. So just be ready for that. Small increase in lateral seismic forces, and then joint reinforcing, shear walls, a bunch of stuff like that. And again, about the same amount of money to bring us from a risk category 3, which the building kind of currently is, to a risk category 4, which would allow it to be used as a shelter. The building would need to be, in order to be designated a shelter, has to be that higher level of design, withstand a higher wind shear, withstand more shaking from an earthquake. So again, about the same amount of money. They're estimating 170-ish, but that's our architect's estimate, not necessarily 175,000 plus or minus to bring that up.
Yeah, I asked the architects what level rated the schools were. They were supposed to get back to us about whether the schools are built to a 3 or a 4 standard, or town hall, for example, which are logical shelter, other shelter places. So
Right, and it may well be, something like Town Hall, that was a school.
Right.
It may have been designed and grandfathered in as a shelter. And then if they were to do a substantial redesign over there in order to bring that up to the code, they'd be facing, I promise you, exactly the same questions that we're facing here about.
Right.
Mhm.
I think we had a question maybe about whether being a shelter was the same thing as being a warming station, a warming location, because we're not.
We're neither of these things, right?
Are there different rules for, I mean, it always surprises me that we're not when.
Right.
Um,
Which doesn't mean that we don't act that way. It's just that we're not, I mean, we don't have. We're librarians and library workers here, right? I mean, and we don't own an emergency services department. So it's just we have a different function in the community. But there are absolutely libraries that operate because they are the best positioned. They're designed in such a way that they're the ones that provide that. If you've got the generator, they just put a new generator across the street at Town Hall, right? So if you're the building with the generator, you're going to be the designated cooling and warming center. You're going to be the shelter because you've got that backup. So it's just a question of, how do we see the library? That's.
So I will say, I think that this would be a great value add to the community. I think that a library as a warming center, as a shelter would be a very welcoming place to the community, and I think it's a natural fit. That being said, it's another one of those hard choices, and understanding that there are other buildings in the community and that we are being very careful of costs. Well, again, love the idea. At this time, I would say that cost is probably more than what we're willing to take on.
And there's a question about timing. Is it a decision we have to make prior to December 12th, or a decision that we can make after December? So I asked that question. Is this a decision we have to make now, or is it a decision that we can make December, the next, or January?
Well, what I'm hearing is that it's a decision we're not going to make now.
Well,
right? And just-
no, but I didn't get I never got a good answer from the architects on that. They want a decision, but I said, I'm sure I want a decision on a lot of things, but do I have to have a decision between now and December 12th? I didn't get an answer.
Just to clarify for myself, so we don't really have any clarity if other buildings in the community meet any of these standards, or it like if we were to have an emergency right now, where do people go?
Town Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where, and they really did. They put it's lovely. They have a new generator over there, right across the street, and it works. So, because they got tested recently with all the power stuff that was going on here in central Delmar. So, that's.
So they have the generator, but do we know if their building is built to the level 4?
My assumption is
Probably
that
not.
my assumption is that it's not. I don't want to speak for them, but
Right.
the building's older than this one, and
It's grandfather. Sure.
Yeah. Just curious.
But there has been a lot of school work done in the past,
right.
20 years or something. So my question to this was by Ashley McGraw. So I said, where are the schools on it? They said, probably not, but we'll check. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So at this point, I'd say you don't have an answer, or you have a negative answer.
Well, we're definitely, it sounds like we're not taking the action to pursue it.
Right.
That's.
Okay. Any other engineering or other
No, that's it.
questions? Okay. The New York State retirement
I'm
invoice.
sorry, I'm not
Sure.
sure are we still going to, have we decided we're not going to go forward with this, that we're going to go back to the architects and find out what their timeline is?
Yeah,
I'm
my
not sure where we ended up.
I'm not either, frankly. That's why I kind of asked the question. So my understanding is that there's outstanding information that's been requested of the architects, and there's outstanding information in general. in that there's a reluctance by a lot of the board members to spend more money at this point. That's my understanding. I mean, but it's unclear to me that that's the understanding. That's what the other board members think. So
Can we-
please speak up.
Do we need to, can we ask for a consensus vote as opposed to a formal vote?
Sure.
Well, the thing is, there's nothing, it's not in the design right now. Neither of these
Right.
things, none of these things are in the design right now. So it would only be more. Like if you want the more, then I think we need to have that conversation.
So maybe I'm just not functioning completely, but so at this point, the vote is only a month away. To me, it seems like we just wait and have the vote, right? I mean, because we're not going to change the amount of the vote at this point. You know, like we're not going to add $10 million to be able to have a structure that withstands hurricanes and tornadoes. So we just have the vote. And in the meantime, we're hoping that they're going to come back with some clarification about how much this will actually really cost, what other buildings exist in the area, and then we'll make a choice at that time if we're gonna dig the hole and cut out something else to pay for it or whatever, right? I mean,
The time pressure, and I don't like to create this like false sense of urgency, but the time pressure is that their engineers, structural engineers, all of the various people, architects, they're in their design right now. So they're asking for this. I think what I go back to them and say is, no, we did not vote to include either of these things. And then if there's an opportunity to add them later, we can talk about the mechanics for that. But the designs are in process like right now. So.
Right.
we can't wait for.
It might be able to. That's what
Yeah.
Mark asked the same question I did. I don't have an answer for you, but I just wanted to have had the conversation.
Which is predicated on the fact that once the bond passes, let's be positive, the goal of the architect is to submit to the SED before Christmas, immediately. That was the whole, that's why have done all those point things. So there's certain decisions that they have to do that. Now, the Christmas thing is our own self-imposed deadline. We could wait, a little bit longer, but I'm uncomfortable with this last minute, we need, we want you to spend another couple $100,000 on something. We're not really sure how much it costs, but we think that's how much it costs. And we can't give you all the information that you want on it. I don't think it's ripe yet to make a decision. Now, to their mind, that means it's not in the original submission to SED.
So is that a place to bring up my concern?
Sure.
Okay, so.
I think you gotta speak up a little bit.
It's come to my attention that they have asked us to choose colors and design elements to the building because they are moving ahead with designing documents, which we have agreed to pay $600,000 for. And I am very uncomfortable with the December 25th, which I just realized deadline, but also if our project vote should go down, then we may owe them a ton of money. Our interactions with them, in my understanding, have been verbal. I think they should not be doing the SED contract stuff until we have a positive vote. So I think that going forward, that might be a problem.
All right, so they will definitely not be submitting anything to SED.
But they're designing it. So once the plans are developed, that is work that they have put in, that we are then responsible compensating them for when we may not have a positive vote on the building. And that is a big concern for me. We seem to be running by the architect firm's timeline and not our timeline. And I think that needs to be formally clarified with them.
And am I mistaken that some of the services that Gail is describing, design in anticipation of a positive vote to be able to submit by a certain timeline, one, that those services are essentially already paid for,
Some of them.
some of them,
Okay.
and two, that even should the vote go down, those services would be useful for a potential restructuring.
Construction documents for a building proposal that community does not want. I'm not clear how they would, yes, I agree with you. Let me go back. Yes, there are things that they've done that I agree with you and things that we have paid for. However, if we have a community that says, no, I don't like this design, I don't want this, and we regroup, and they've done construction documents for SED based on the design we currently have, and it's not clear to me how useful that would be to us, because we would have to regroup about the design.
I agree, and I'm sure it's not a one for one. And I'm not an architect, so I don't know. But I would guess, and we can ask perhaps, that scaling something down or shifting it is different from the blank page. Or is at least less work than a blank page. And I think that's
Yeah.
a question we have to, it's a fair question, Gail, something we have to ask.
Yep.
And I think we need to do it in writing, to get some response from them in writing to clarify our concerns. That would be my suggestion. I would go with the board. We want to do, I just don't want us to have I don't want us to spend money that we are not able to
Right.
benefit from.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that we don't want to spend money on things that aren't going to benefit the community. I mean, the plan that the board enacted, I don't know, 2 years ago or something, was this plan to, to run the vote and then submit to the SED as soon as possible. So that was kind of always the plan, so that you run the risk of the vote, if the vote is not positive, you have, the board would have to regroup and think about, what's the next steps, if any, that we take. So that's, I mean, it's kind of this track that we're on. We decided to go on this one track, down this one track. And here we are, a month out, so.
I would just say it's valid, but the flip side of that argument is that the vote passes.
Right.
Then we don't have construction documents to submit to SED and the cost comes back to us some other way. Where
Right.
either construction costs are going up, the estimate doesn't hold. Or we have to expedite, we have to pay for expedited things to meet, building goals.
Maybe what I need to understand is if the community says that they would like us to look at a different design, because I think people are in agreement that asbestos and whatever needs to be taken care of. I don't think that part of this is an issue. Maybe I'm correct, but I don't think so. Maybe we can clarify with the architects that question of what happens with the construction documents and what our financial obligation would be. It's the financial. They can work on whatever they want. I'm really happy to have them do it as quickly as possible. It's really the financial obligation that I'm concerned about. And I hope, that the community is going to jump right on this and say it's great.
I think the crux of your question is what I'm hearing, just want to make sure, is it depends on if the community is not supportive of the project, they vote no, then how deeply redesigned is whatever eventual new project, if there is one, how deeply redesigned is that will play directly into how much value the engineering and architectural design and all of that, that has been done what's the value of that?
It's really, so again, if the community says they would like a different building, different project. My question is really, if they finish the construction
Yeah.
documents for this project, are we then obligated to pay that bill?
We've already paid, so that bill doesn't come at the end. We're in construction.
We paid $600,000?
We're in the middle of that phase and we've paid, Tanya's got it probably better than me, but we're in the middle of paying that right now. So every month we get bills from them as they.
As they're performing the work,
They perform.
we have to pay for their services.
We are going according to their timeline and not our timeline.
No, I mean, I would take issue with that. I think there's a bill on that we approve that's gonna be check number 1232 for $153,000 for Ashton McGraw Architects. I'm assuming that's under the latest contract amendment. There's probably still money left in that contract that they haven't hit the ceiling. That's really the issue that we gotta talk about. So we have to assume that the budget, that the project passes. And we go forward with the project. If we want to delay on that, then that's we need to reopen that conversation and have a full board discussion about that and say, okay, you need to pause now. And then we figure out how to look at the contract that we sign with them. Can we terminate and or pause that contract legally, talk to the lawyers? I mean, there's a whole bunch of things we have to do, which we can do, no, definitely as a board, but I think we need the whole board to discuss that at this point.
To ask your question maybe a different way, Gail, should the vote not pass? I presume that we would have a pencils down moment with the architects. That if the vote did
absolutely.
not pass, that work stops.
Right.
The moment that vote comes in. But as with any project, there would be runoff.
Yeah.
In that, yes, there would be some costs that we had incurred for work before the vote, but that are paid afterward. It sounds, I think your primary point is that we're not going, if the bond does not pass, that we would not be paying for work that occurs after that vote. And it seems like we do have that within our control, that yes, there may be some work going on now that we have committed to the payment for that may be more useful for a future project as opposed to the current project, if the vote goes down. But I don't think that we would be asking them to do more things should the vote not pass and pay for those things.
That's my assumption too. We signed a contract and it passed for certain, with a number of different amendments to that contract. There's a dollar amount on the contract. That's the cap. They spend up to that cap. They haven't reached the cap. They're probably pretty close. Because, that they want it submitted, with, by the end of the year or by the Christmas, whatever, they have to get going on a bunch of things in order to get that close. So that I guess I would ask the staff to put together, where are we exactly with the contract, the payments, and what's left in that contract to be spent. Yeah.
Don't misunderstand me. I'm just like very, very due diligent and cautious when it
Sure.
comes to spending. So I'm always very.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Definitely. Okay, I guess is there any other questions on the project? Or any discussion points that any board member has to talk about at this point before we move on to the next?
Just want to clarify that we're taking no action on the points that Jeff raised today.
That's correct. Okay, I would encourage everyone to obviously publicize the vote. And also, I'm gonna take this time. There's a video that just got put up on YouTube, which is excellent, which I would ask people to watch and distribute as far as we can. It kind of really goes through the project. It's a really nice job. The video.
Thanks, Kristen.
Yes, thanks,
And-
Kristen.
And just I think we're all trying to get this message out here, but there's about a month until the vote. If anyone has groups or gatherings of friends and neighbors that are interested in more information about the vote, I think that there are board members that are happy to make themselves available to come, answer questions, provide information. So please do not hesitate to reach out. We're here to help you understand it.
Jeff, were you bringing sign up?
I do. I got it.
So you want to do, we'll do that after the meeting, or you want to do it at the meeting?
Oh, no, after the meeting is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Okay, any other project related questions before we go on to the retirement, the exciting retirement invoice discussion? Okay, can you give us a little brief on the exciting retirement?
Okay, so every year, our friend, the comptroller, sends us a bill for our retirement. So this year, you have your choice of spending either $323,915 for our participation in the New York State and local retirement system, or you can wait till closer to February and pay, you know, a little bit less than $3,000 more. So the thing is, at this time of year, our tax money comes in, most of it's here in October. There's no reason to not pay it. So every year I come to you and we ask to pay this either at the November or December meeting, depending on when I get the bill, and save ourselves a couple $1,000s by paying it on time, because we have the money from the taxes have been received and we're able to pay the bill. So it's over my authorization. So I need just a little bit. So I need your permission to pay this bill.
And this is a bill that is not optional. It is a mandated bill that we have to pay every year if we have employees that are in the retirement system.
Correct. A past board elected to have the library participate, and once you're participating, it's not a train you can get off. So
I'll take a motion on the approval of the prepayment of the New York State local retirement system invoice.
So moved.
Caroline, second. Gail, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Seeing opposition, that motion carried. Other new business.
I have one that just hot off the presses. So
Okay.
I got for the first time, I received a request to have a rental agreement with for the use of this room under the new terms of our meeting room use and policy. And it is for a piano recital that would be held in late January. And we haven't established yet cost for that rental. Traditionally in the past, one of the price that would have been charged was almost directly to defray the cost of piano tuning. So that was the cost of using any piano recital in the room. But separate from that, I wouldn't recommend changing that, because if we're going to tune it specifically for that recital, then there's no reason that it's not a cost the library should incur to retune the piano. As I was looking around trying to figure out what is it that we would want to charge, I was looking on the Bethlehem Schools website, and I said, oh, this is smaller than, but not dissimilar from a middle school auditorium. And they have prices depending, they have a sort of a multi-tiered system depending on whether the organization is within the school district or outside the school district. And those prices vary depending on what kind of room you want. And I just wanted to have a conversation here, because they're going to want to have this locked down so that they can tell their parents sometime, maybe after the December board meeting, they're going to want to have that locked down. So is this, what do you think? I had looked up the sort of the average cost of a custodian per hour. We could I was rounding up a little bit to $25 an hour. That's higher than the school district's charge of for an organization like this that's within the school district. For the middle school auditorium would be $15 an hour. So how do you want me to proceed? You want my recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, my thought is that, this is the first time we're coming on the box with this. It's a new policy that it shouldn't be prohibitive. But it also should be a standard amount. We shouldn't charge non-piano users the cost of tuning the piano, right? So you should figure out you have to pay for tuning the piano if you want it tuned, and then you should pay X amount per hour. So I thought maybe 25 bucks an hour. Seems like that's doable. It's underneath, someone wants to use the.
The school district chart seems highly instructive.
Yeah.
Both in terms of structure
Right.
and in terms of price.
I mean, I think their main break, I mean, there's a significant break. There's a significant difference between if you're an organization, for profit or not for profit, but you're located within the school district, there's a price. And then if you're from outside the area, there's a significantly higher price. So that seemed logical to me. That's.
Yeah. I
I mean, I can't think of another way to determine fair market value.
mean, you can do cost of like setup roughly, but you're gonna set it up anyway. But you could do like what it costs to set up and take down the room.
Do you think we can put together? So they would need the contract locked down by after the December board meeting?
Yeah, that's my goal. But I just wanted, before I go into talking to we've talked to them a little bit.
Mhm.
I just wanted to know, take the temperature of the board about where you see this heading so that I can get in and get something prepared so that it can be.
So we can approve it at December.
Yeah,
board.
yeah.
Okay.
I gotta have it reviewed, gotta have that. We haven't. I have a pretty good facilities use contract that I stole from the Western New York Regional Library Council. But I'd want to have that reviewed just because it's the first one. I'd want to have that reviewed by the attorney, make sure we're all fair square and then have that for you. And then we've got a template, right? So then it's more of a question of does that concept of inside and outside the district seems reasonable? I mean, okay, so we'll.
Just, we're part of the comprehensive library system. So I do think the school's a good model, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's strictly apples to apples. I think we have a little bit broader mission. And I would want it to be as affordable as possible. And so I err a little bit on the side of more inclusive to the entire Hudson library system. Like I did when we were doing policy. So I think I'm being a little consistent there. So I'm not saying there can't be a different structure, but I don't know that we should be trying to make a profit off of it.
It's definitely not a profit. So,
Profit here, yeah, exactly.
but there are two questions there. So one is about the per hour, however the charge gets established. And then the geography of the net that would necessitate or move towards a significantly higher cost.
Am I correct in thinking that our current policy does not distinguish? It says nonprofit sponsored or nonprofit category, but it does not distinguish for larger meetings, which this would be, whether or not that's a school district resident or a non-school district resident. It just says, I think we need to be consistent with the policy for a large room. So if the policy for a large room does not distinguish between school district resident and Upper Hudson resident, then that's the way we should be looking at the rental. I understand for the small room or the individuals that's school district residents only. We're talking about programs that would be larger programs that people would have. I think it needs to be consistent with that.
And I got you. And then there's another thing in here, which is the room is not available. This is, I mean, it's a small local business. We like piano teachers and they're great, but they're not eligible to use the room for this. They're not eligible. They're not a nonprofit, right? Like that's a for-profit
Right.
venture. So that's another.
Yeah, so I think, this falls into the bucket of, as Jeff was saying, is that this is, generally, we do not offer the rooms to for-profit groups. In this case, we do, and what they Therefore, they pay a charge
Yeah.
to use,
understand that.
to use the room. But I guess I'm trying to figure out what your question is.
It's not a question, it's just that I think we have a policy that makes certain groups, anyway, the reason we let the rental go is because the rental is educational. No? All right, so
No.
why are we renting it? Let's go back.
Because it is, we are renting it because this is not a not-for-profit group.
Right, the
This is-
policy had a couple different buckets.
Yes, this is the final.
Second bucket.
Generally, the other buckets do not apply to not-for-profit, apply to for-profit groups. This is a group where a business can come in, where, stewards can come in and have a meeting if they want to. But because they are a for-profit group, they are renting the room. In no other circumstances, if this was a not-for-profit group, they could come in, as that term is defined in the policy, they could come and rent this room for no charge.
Right,
Yeah.
so I'm just saying that if any nonprofit group within the capital, within the Upper Hudson Library
Okay.
System
As
can
defined in the policy.
rent.
Yeah,
Seems to me that the rental policy should
Extends.
also be the
the same geography.
Same
I got you.
Same
That's
geography.
I got
Geographic, that's got it.
That's all
Okay.
I'm saying, yeah.
And I think that's what Laura's saying too. So I think actually,
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I did not read the policy again for this meeting, so I definitely not remembering all the details of who can do what, but
No, but that
We
makes,
are
that
saying
makes
the same
sense.
thing.
You are saying is
Yeah.
that, yes, not-for-profits are over here.
Yeah.
We're dealing with for-profits. What you're saying is that the geographic rules for the for-profit should be the same as the geographic rules for the
Exactly,
not-for-profits.
yes.
Yeah. you got it. I'm there. And it wouldn't disallow, like for nonprofits, they would be disallowed if they were outside that geography.
Mhm.
But for and frankly, a not-for-profit outside of this geography or a for-profit inside or outside the geography, then they're gonna be in a rental agreement. A non-for-profit from Boston could come here and rent the room too. I wouldn't say no to them.
Yes.
They're gonna get charged that out of area, higher amount. So, okay, that's good. It doesn't apply in this case because it's from inside the school district, but it's a good thing to do. So we'll move forward in that.
I would also suggest that you consider the janitorial cost when you look at trying to come up with
Yep.
price. Yada, yada, yada.
Okay,
Okay.
have guidance, enough
I've
guidance there?
got some guidance.
Got
I
some
still,
guidance,
I
okay.
still don't know what you think the price would be.
Yeah, maybe we could.
I still don't have that. I would love a little bit more clarity on what you think. I don't-
Okay.
Don't need a vote. I just want to know.
Well, why don't we send around the school district list? We can
Okay.
see the prices and everyone can comment on the reasonableness of
Okay,
those.
Sounds good.
All right, very good.
Yeah, pretty typically, we would pay like just to cover the cost of the custodian,
Yes,
basically.
like the PTO,
We're like.
you're the tier one. You're in the most inside, right? That would be like the Friends of the Library or
Right,
something. And
correct.
if they wanted to come in here and throw glitter around, they don't have to pay to use the room, but I'm gonna make them pay to clean up the glitter.
There's no glitter though.
Glitter would
Remember?
be
Glitter's
against
I know.
policy.
We had a glitter conversation.
I know. I remember. Some other equally messy, not.
They want to,
Well, before us.
I want to throw food around or something, right? Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
so that's a good, so if you can send around the policy, then members of the board, I would comment, direct reply all. And we'll have a discussion about that.
Okay, my
and
expectations, I'll have that back to you for the.
Bring that to the December meeting.
Yep.
Okay, any other new business? Any new business? Any old business? Any other old business? Any future business? Any other business in general? Anyone wants to talk about?
Timelines. Monkey business.
Exactly, right. Okay, any other public participation on email or in the room? First. Okay, I'll take a motion for adjournment then. Laura, second.
A second.
Sarah, all those in favor signify by saying aye, raise your hand. To an opposition, that motion carried. Thank you.